Tustin, California is a city that prides itself on planned neighborhoods, good schools, clean air, and the illusion of immunity, but critical environmental justice reminds us no community is untouched, only unequally protected. On November 7, 2023, the hangar burned down. It was a century-old military relic used for World War II, built with the confidence of an empire, collapsed into a cloud that settled on ordinary homes and homes that never signed up to inhale histories. Pello teaches us that critical environmental justice expands the frame. Environmental harm is never just environmental. It's racial, political, economical, historical, and a burning hangar becomes an x-ray of the system that it built. The hangar did not create inequality. It illuminated it. The neighborhoods that got hit the hardest weren't the wealthier ones. They were the immigrant neighborhoods, Latino, Vietnamese, places that smaller homes, denser living, and thinner margins. It's strange how population always seems to know exactly where to fall. Critical environmental justice insists we ask, who holds power? Who is sacrificed? At what scale does injustice operate? This wasn't a local event. It was the intersection of military history, urban planning, racism, immigration, and capitalistic neglect. Pello writes about the expendability of marginalized communities, how the state treats certain bodies as less urgent, less protected, less grievable. The hangar fire showed us whose safety is negotiable. What's crazy is that some residents didn't receive any notification at all unless you lived in front of the hangar. Some were undocumented and afraid to ask questions. Fear became its own pollutant, one more toxin drifting across the neighborhood. With the Madoff and Foster article, we learned that profit over people, disconnection over community, growth over health, and here it was for us in Tustin, California. Asbestos on our playground slides, bureaucratic silence settling into immigrants' homes, and Madoff says capitalism is wired to harm the environment, not by mistake, but by design. When safety costs money, safety becomes optional. The hangar fire didn't break the system. We finally were revealed to it. We had asbestos falling from the sky like the world's most dangerous confetti. The police would tell us to be cautious because there'd be possible asbestos, potential exposure, but the ash didn't speak the language of uncertainty. It landed on lawns, lungs, and the lives without hesitation. It hurt to see my community suffering, especially the ones who lived closest to the hangars. The ones whose labor keeps the city running are the same ones who left to sweep asbestos off their doormats with their bare hands. I would walk those streets, and the silence feels heavier than the ashes that once fell. Disasters don't reveal new inequalities. They illuminate the ones already here. Environmental racism isn't loud, it's quiet. Administrative, a delay in testing, a failure to translate, a cleanup that moves slower in working-class zip codes, harm backed by paperwork. As you can see, this is where the hangar once stood before it caught on fire, and it was close to a school. It's right directly in front of an elementary school. And imagine all those poor kids inhaling those asbestos when it first happened. At the time, I remember when residents and myself would ask, when will the cleanup begin? When will they test their homes? When will we know it's safe? And the answers came slowly, paced by budgets, bureaucracy, and political convenience. Yet amid debris and confusion, my community did what they've always done: organized, translated for those who couldn't understand what was going on, shared masks, attended city meetings with trembling voices and frustrations, but nonetheless, they want to go ask questions and got some answers. This is what resistance looks like. This is what environmental racism looks like. It's not always going to be factories. It's not always smokestacks. Sometimes it's a delay in response, a delay in translation, a delay in empathy. Sometimes racism arrives quietly like dust. Critical environmental justice says environmental harm happens across scales: the body, the home, the community, the history. This wasn't just a fire for us. It was a breach in trust and safety, in a fragile contract between residents and the state or city. We learned Pello's 4 pillars of critical environmental justice. Pello gives us 4 pillars, 4 ways to understand why injustices like Tustin aren't accidents but predictable outcomes. First is multi-scalar harm. Damage hits bodies, communities, histories, political systems all at once. Pollution doesn't just land, it expands. The second is intersectional inequalities, which is race, class, undocumented individuals, gender, legal status. They don't add up, they multiply. Third is expandability. Some communities are treated as if they can be sacrificed. Tustin showed us who the state moves quickly for and who it moves slowly toward. Transformative justice would be the fourth one. Pello says justice isn't about tweaking the system, it's about reimagining it entirely so that breathing doesn't depend on your zip code. This is not reform, this is a redesign. I interviewed my next door neighbor to get her perspective on the incident, and this is what she had to say.
When the hangar caught on fire, you could see the roof of the hangar flaking away like snowflakes and see particles of asbestos throughout the city.
As for structural solutions, real change requires more than advice to stay indoors. It requires structural transformation, such as multilingual emergency infrastructure, community oversight, prioritized cleanup in all neighborhoods, not just the affluent ones, transparent environmental data, laws that treat clean air as non-negotiables. This is not individual responsibility. This is a collective accountability. Here's the quiet truth. Maybe the hangar burned down because its time was up. Maybe it burned to remind us that the past is never the past. It drifts, it settles, it clings to us until we face it. Environmental injustice is not a moment, it's a memory, and we keep breathing. And in closing, the air has moved on, the ash has swept away, but the memory of the toxic snowfall still lingers in the people who live beneath it. We like to imagine that injustice arrives loudly, with sirens, alarms, or explosion, but more often, in my city in Tustin, California, and many places like it, injustice falls quietly from the sky, settles softly in our lives, and waits for us to notice. We just want policies that treat clean air like a right, not a luxury. And sometimes the most dangerous things are the ones that don't make a sound.